Imagine standing on Preikestolen, peering over a 600-meter drop into fjord waters shaped by glaciers for millennia. Not far away, Lovatnet once birthed sudden, deadly tsunamis from falling rock that raced across the lake and wiped out whole farms. A reminder that this landscape still moves. Elsewhere, the Saltstraumen maelstrom swallows boats in spinning currents, stronger than muddy rivers, while Trolltunga juts like a tongue over an abyss 700 meters high. In this video, we'll trace the connected paths from Sognefjord's icy arms to the midnight sun beaches of the Lofoten Islands. High above the glittering Glacier, Norway's Preikestolen rises as a near-perfect square slab of granite, suspended 604 meters over the water. Do you know Preikestolen's flat plateau was carved by glacial ice and then split into its dramatic shape as the fjord below retreated? Hikers who reach that knife-edged cliff step onto rock polished smooth by meltwater thousands of years ago. The view from the precipice frames Glacier like a living painting and stretches toward the distant, brooding Kerag Massif. Despite its fame, Preikestolen still hides surprises. Wild mountain flowers bloom between fissures, and clouds can pour through like water. Many visitors don't realize the plateau's precise geometry made it a natural navigation beacon for coastal communities around Stavanger long before tourism boomed. The trail itself is a story carved in stone, with steps hewn from glacier-smoothed bedrock and ancient cairns that point the way. Seasonal light transforms the experience. Pale summer evenings stretch shadows across the gorge, while winter frost makes the cliff seem to glow. Guides often link Preikestolen to nearby attractions, guiding travelers onward to the lesser-known hanging farms and the dramatic fjord cruises below. From the mountain, you can see the route leading toward Kerag's boulder and onward through narrow valleys that whisper of older Ice Age's fosses. Local stories add another layer, like the fishermen who used reflections on the rock to predict sudden storms. These human threads connect the cliff to Stavanger's harbor life, where old boathouses still trade stories about daring ascents. Photographers chase the precise moment when light crowns the plateau. But the true magnetism lies in standing at the edge and feeling centuries of geology beneath your boots. For those who continue from Preikestolen, a short drive or ferry carries you deeper into Glaciers' narrows, toward hidden waterfalls and cliffs that challenge even the most experienced climbers. Sognefjord plunges to depths exceeding 1,300 meters and carves inward for more than 200 kilometers, a glacial scar that ranks among the planet's deepest and longest fjord systems. Do you know Sognefjord's labyrinth of branches? Names like Orlandsfjord and Norway were once rivers of ice so vast they reshaped entire mountain ranges and still channel waterfalls that never stop falling. From the meltwater veins that drain the Jostedalsbreen ice cap to the green deltas at the fjord's head, this landscape reads like a living atlas of geological age, each inlet and promontory recording a different epoch. Steamship routes thread the still arms, delivering visitors to hamlets such as Flom and Undredal, where steep terraces hold tiny farms and centuries-old goat paths hug cliff faces as if stitched to the rock. In the narrow, UNESCO-protected Norway Fjord, ships glide between vertical walls that rise dramatically from the water, and that same vertical theater connects to stave churches, waterfall-fed valleys, and grazing plateaus. Winter brings an odd moderation. The fjord's deep waters retain heat, creating microclimates where temperate plants survive alongside species more common to the Arctic, a rare biological overlap. Fishermen still cast nets in sheltered coves that have fed families for generations, while modern ferries and scenic rail lines stitch the fjord into routes that link Norway's coast to its interior. Drive away from the water, and the world shifts. Plunging torrents become cascading stairways of white, then narrow blue glacier tongues echo the fjord's origin and remind you where the ice once stood. This continuous thread from sea to summit explains why Sognefjord shaped local myths, mapped trade, and forged connections between isolated farms, coastal communities, and the highlands beyond. Later, we will meet a family whose barley fields end at a moraine, and a boatman whose livelihood follows the tides. Two lives that reveal how one fjord binds geology, culture, and climate into a single living system. Lovatnet Lake's crystalline turquoise waters sit trapped between vertical granite walls, fed by melting glaciers and filtered by ancient moraine, making it one of the clearest glacial lakes on Earth. Do you know Lovatnet once generated deadly mega-tsunamis after massive rockfalls in 1905 and 1936 that raced across the water with such force they swept entire farms into the fjord? Visitors arrive expecting serene reflections, but find a landscape written by violent geology, where every pebble and strand of green tells a story of shifting mountains. From the water's edge, you can see how the shoreline alternates between soft meadows and abrupt cliffs, a living map of past collapses and glacier movements. Boats that glide on Lovatnet seem to float on glass, But beneath that clarity lies centuries of glacial silt and a cold, still current that preserves history. Local guides will trace the route from the lake to nearby Loen and the Preikestolen Glacier, connecting worlds of ice, rock, and water in a single conversation. In spring, the melt increases the lake's glow, charging the color to an impossible blue-green that photographers chase around the world. Yet just a few kilometers away, steep alpine slopes keep reminding visitors that beauty here has a price: instability, rock fractures, and unpredictable weather. Walk the trails up toward the ridge, and you can follow the scars of old slides, each one a cliffside chapter that leads your eye toward the fjord. Those fjords in turn open into the larger Nordfjord, where the freshwater of Lovatnet meets the salty sea, and the landscape folds into maritime Norway. Families who lived along its banks rebuilt after catastrophe, and their stories are stitched into the cabins and narrow roads that cling to the valley. Today, conservationists monitor vibrations and rock movement, blending ancient knowledge with modern sensors to keep communities safe, while honoring the lake's wild character. Stand on a bluff at sunset and the light fractures across the water, creating an illusion of depth that makes the lake look bottomless. Photographers linger here until dusk, hoping to capture the exact moment when the water's color shifts and the mountains release a hush that feels almost ceremonial. And if you kayak along the quieter coves, you might find ancient tree stumps submerged near the banks, frozen relics from colder centuries when forests grew closer to the ice. Scientists sampling coarse sediments from the lakebed find layers that read like tree rings for the earth, revealing sudden events and slow climatic trends across millennia. Each core hole connects Lovatnet to a continental story of ice advances and retreats that sculpted all of western Norway's rugged coast. Lofoten Islands are home to rare Arctic white sand beaches and ancient granite peaks that plunge directly into the ocean. Do you know the Lofoten Islands sit within the Arctic Circle, yet host vibrant fishing villages whose painted rohrbuer cling to sheltered harbors? Winter storms carve surreal light across tiny bays, and in summer, the midnight sun lingers, stretching golden hours into nights. The sea here is unusually rich, driven by the Gulf Stream, and it sustains enormous Atlantic cod migrations that shaped Europe's fisheries. Sea eagles wheel above remote skerries, while the glassy fjords mirror jagged peaks, creating landscapes that seem painted by a furious hand. Hike from Henningsvær to the jagged ridges at Vågakallen, and you cross terrain older than most mountain ranges on Earth. The fishing cod racks, stocked with drying fish called stockfish, still stand on wooden frames, the same method used for 1,000 years. In the village of Rein, red cabins cluster like punctuation on the shoreline, and every view insists you pause and rethink scale. Lofoten's museums hide surprising treasures, from Viking-era artifacts dug from peat to exhibits showing how the Arctic fish trade rewired European markets. Kayak through narrow channels, and you may silently glide beneath steep walls where waterfalls vanish almost vertically into the sea. In autumn, the aurora bows low enough to silhouette fishermen mending nets on crowded quays, as if the lights are inspecting human work. Photographers come for the dramatic contrasts: turquoise waters, black mountains, snow patches, and ochre villages. But the islands resist any single perfect frame. From Lofoten, the coastline curves toward Vesterålen and Tromsø, where bigger seas and wider skies continue the Arctic story. Each island is a chapter of survival and spectacle, a compressed atlas where geology, ocean, and culture collide in inches and miles. Walk the shore at dawn, and you will smell kelp, hear gulls countable only in hundreds, and feel how time slows here. Stay until dusk, and the horizon will stitch itself with colors you thought reserved for paintings, then flip to night, filled with stars. Local chefs turn simple cod and seaweed into dishes that taste of wind, salt, and an economy built on the tides. The islands reward patience. Weather can close a road, then open it the next hour to reveal a new, impossible panorama. Lofoten is at once intimate and colossal, where human stories sit dwarfed against geological time and the restless sea. To leave is to carry a memory of light and silence that lingers long after the ferry fades into the mist. Trolltunga in Norway is one of the planet's rare rock ledges that projects horizontally about 700 meters above Reinedalen Valley, forming a dramatic natural balcony. Do you know Trolltunga was sculpted by ice during the last glacial retreat, when moving glaciers sheared away the valley and left this tongue of stone suspended over a sapphire lake? The approach is a pilgrimage of patience, rough trails, sudden ridgelines, and river crossings that stretch roughly 22 kilometers round trip. Yet the climb rewards persistence with a view that makes maps feel inadequate and emotions run unexpectedly deep. Photographers chase the thin rim of dawn light, hikers time their breaths with the wind, and couples use the ledge to mark life-changing moments. Locals whisper old folktales too, saying trolls once roamed these cliffs and left their mark in names and hidden caves. On clear days, the scene folds outward to the Foldjefonna Glacier and the braided fjords of Hardanger, linking rock to ice to water in one continuous panorama. Imagine standing with nothing but a thin slab of stone between you and the void, the lake below, reflecting a sky so sharp it seems painted. That vertigo flips into a strange clarity, where the world's scale compresses and a single moment feels both intimate and vast. Visitors often come for the photograph, but they leave with a different souvenir, a memory of having stood at a geological hinge that connects Ice Age forces to modern human stories. From here, the next chapter is natural and inevitable. Descend toward the hard edges of the glacier, or trace the waters down into the fjords, where the landscape keeps revealing its secrets. Innerdalen Valley in Norway holds one of the planet's rarest landscapes, a near-perfect glacial amphitheater ringed by sheer granite spires. Do you know Innerdalstornet? The valley's signature peak is so geometrically sharp that mountaineers often nickname it Norway's Matterhorn and travel from across the globe to test its ridges. Inside that bowl, a quiet lake mirrors the peaks, and a single summer farm still strings out hay, the traditional way, unchanged for centuries. The valley is protected and remains largely free of roads, so every approach feels like stepping into a living painting carved by ice. Walkers follow narrow trails that climb from the meadow to ledges where waterfalls stitch the cliffs, and the air smells of mountain heather. From one ridge, you can see the path that snakes onward into the heart of Trolltunga, linking Innerdalen to higher passes and neighboring valleys. That connection matters. Hikers who begin at Innerdalen can continue to remote summits where views fall away to fjords far below. In autumn, the valley's slopes turn a patchwork of copper and gold, and the contrast with the bare granite creates photographs that seem almost unreal. Local guides still tell stories of shepherds who navigated by rock formations and of rare Arctic flowers that survive here at unusually low elevations. Scientists have noted microclimates in Innerdalen that preserve cold-adapted species, a botanical treasure trove that belies the valley's modest size. When you leave its meadows and follow descending trails, you carry a sense of scale that changes how you see Norway's bigger spectacles. The fjords suddenly feel more intimate. This small valley teaches a larger truth. Norway's famous panoramas are stitched from many hidden rooms like Innerdalen, each with its own secret shapes and stories. Find the old mountain lodge at the valley entrance, and you'll meet people who have spent a lifetime mapping routes and guarding these passages. They will point to a faint track that leads you onward towards Sunndalen and the deep fjords, illustrating how Innerdalen is both destination and starting point. Here, silence is not emptiness, but concentration. A place where geology, weather, and human craft converge into scenes that change by the hour. Stay long enough, and you'll understand why climbers, botanists, and woods all claim Innerdalen as a measure of Norway's wild heart. Hardangervidda Plateau in Norway is the largest mountain plateau in Europe, a vast tundra stretching over 8,000 square kilometers, where ancient ice sculpted a landscape of rolling heath, jagged lakes, and endless horizons. Do you know that Hardangervidda supports the continent's densest population of wild reindeer and harbors plant species more commonly found well above the Arctic Circle, surviving in sheltered pockets since the last ice age? From the edges of its plateaus, rivers born here plunge into dramatic fjords and spill as thundering waterfalls, linking Hardangervidda to Norway's coastal labyrinth. Hikers crossing its boggy expanses follow ancient migration corridors that once connected nomadic Sami communities to fishing fjords and inland hunting grounds. Beneath the seemingly monotonous heather lies a quilt of habitats. Frost-polished boulder fields, peat bogs that lock millennia of secrets, and gravelly ridges where fragile orchids bloom each summer. These micro-habitats create a patchwork that supports not just reindeer, but wolverines, mountain foxes, and birds whose black and white patterns shimmer against the snow. Hardangervidda's weather can flip in minutes. Sun-baked ridgelines give way to sudden snowbands that remind you the plateau is still governed by the slow rules of ice and wind. In winter, the plateau becomes a silent, frozen sea, a route for cross-country expeditions, and an open laboratory for climate scientists tracing glacial retreat upstream to Norway's great ice caps. Follow those meltwaters, and you arrive at the ice-carved edges of Folgefonna and the cascading Vøringsfossen, a natural chain revealing how high Norway's uplands feed the fjords. Local stories speak of mountain farms abandoned as the climate and economies shifted, and archaeological finds on Hardangervidda reveal human presence during unexpected warm spells thousands of years ago. Conservation efforts now balance reindeer herding traditions with tourism, creating guided routes that teach visitors to read the plateau's subtle signs. Perched above the Fjord, the Stegastein viewpoint projects 30 meters out from the mountainside, giving visitors the sensation of standing over a living map of water and rock. Do you know that this simple wooden and steel platform is part of the national tourist route and frames the UNESCO-listed Norway fjord like a natural theater? From the moment you step onto the cantilevered walkway, the fjord unfolds in a long, quiet ribbon below, carved by glaciers and still whispering ancient tides. On clear days, you can trace the serrated ridges, tiny farmsteads clinging to slopes, and the narrow road that links mountain passes to inhabited valleys. Stegastein isn't just about the view. It is an engineered gesture that respects the landscape, anchored with minimal intrusion, so the mountain keeps its voice. As the road descends, you'll notice how the scale compresses. The mountains feel closer, the farms larger, the water more immediate, as if the landscape itself folds to reveal humanity's small, stubborn presence. Keep your camera ready, but also remember to look without a lens. Some of Stegastein's lessons live only in memory and in how they change the maps we carry inside us. Later, when you board the Flom Railway or take a boat into the Norway fort, you will carry with you the avatar of this view, a cantilever of wood and steel projecting faith into empty space. It's a modest monument to perspective, and one more reason why this stretch of fjord country keeps calling travelers back. High on the rugged Nordland coast, Svartisen Glacier holds one of Europe's most extraordinary contrasts, brushing the edge of temperate woodlands. Do you know that one of Svartisen's tongues, Reinebringen, descends to within about 20 meters of sea level, making it one of the lowest lying glaciers on the continent? The ice here is startlingly blue, compressed for centuries into crystalline layers that cleave and calve in thunderous events that reshape the landscape. Local fishermen and farmers still time their seasons by the glacier's meltwater, which feeds clear rivers, hidden lakes, and fertile valleys below. Walkable moraines and accessible glacier fronts make Svartisen unusually intimate for a wild ice mass, allowing scientists and visitors to study crevasses, moulins, and ancient air trapped in the ice. Yet beneath the visible white, there are mysteries, subglacial streams and lakes that flow like hidden arteries under the glacier, changing course without warning. Reinebringen's dramatic advance and retreat over decades has been recorded in living memory, creating ghost forests, tilted fence posts, and abandoned fields that tell a human story of climate's power. Researchers tag the glacier's movement, measure its thinning in millimeters, and map its bedrock to understand how warmth and ocean currents reach inland ice. Visit in summer, and you are likely to hear the glacier breathe. The sharp pops of calving, the whisper of meltwater, tunneling through blue tunnels. Yet in winter, the same ground is wind, and the ice seems to harden into an almost architectural silence that hides its slow, relentless flow. Vøringsfossen drops about 182 meters from the Hardangervidda plateau into the Innerdalen Gorge, creating one of Europe's steepest single-drop waterfalls. Do you know Vøringsfossen is fed by the Boreal River and glacial melt, linking the high moorland to the roaring canyon below? The persistent spray sculpts the cliffs and creates microhabitats where rare mosses and lichens cling to wet rock faces. Local guides speak of rainbows that appear and vanish like punctuation marks across the mist, a private gallery for patient visitors. You approach along the old route from Fjord, each bend unveiling new perspectives of the fall and the steep, wind-carved walls. Footpaths and viewing platforms allow close contact without disturbing the river's rhythm, a careful balance between access and preservation. Beneath the plunge, the gorge tightens into turbulence, where water has ground smooth grooves and secret caves over thousands of years. Those channels record a history of glacial floods and shifting rock, layers that geologists specialize for the story they tell of Norway's shaping. Winter transforms Vøringsfossen. Ribbons of ice hang from ledges, and the mist freezes into delicate, transient sculptures. Respect its power, and the waterfall rewards close observation. The scent of wet stone, tiny alpine plants, and the chorus of rushing water. Spend time here, and the layers of rock, climate, and life begin to read like chapters, each revealing why Vøringsfossen feels both ancient and alive. Saltstraumen's narrow strait squeezes the equivalent of hundreds of millions of cubic meters of seawater through a gap barely a few hundred meters wide, creating one of the planet's strongest tidal maelstroms. Surge races so quickly that whirlpools the size of small lakes spin and collapse, scouring the seabed and drawing nutrient-rich waters to the surface. Fishermen have long timed their nets to the tide here because the chaos concentrates fish and plankton into concentrated pockets, producing some of Norway's most productive local fisheries. Scientists flock to Saltstraumen to study vortex dynamics and marine mixing that influence ecosystems from kelp forests to migrating cod, insights that affect fisheries along the Intet coast. Local lore treats the maelstrom like a living force. Sagas speak of ships lured off course and anglers who learn to respect the current's moods, passing down careful techniques. Yet modern engineers and guides have learned to navigate and even harness the spectacle, turning danger into sustainable tourism and scientific observation platforms. Walk a cliff path at low tide, and you can see gulls and cormorants exploiting the feast. Then imagine that same stretch overwhelmed 6 hours later by walls of raging water. Those rhythms connect Saltstraumen to nearby archipelagos, including the dramatic coasts of Lofoten and Vesterålen, where currents shape breeding grounds and weather patterns far beyond the channel. Photographers who arrive at dawn often describe a paradox: serene Arctic light framing an almost violent marine engine that functions with clockwork precision. Understanding Saltstraumen helps explain Norway's coastline more broadly, how tides sculpt fjords, feed life, and even influenced settlement patterns from Viking harbors to modern coastal towns. Next, we will trace those links from whirlpool to shore, showing how one narrow channel supports a vast coastal web. It is a small hinge with enormous reach. High above a polished fjord, Norway's Lofoten Massif hides one of the planet's rarest viewpoints. Reinebringen rises abruptly from sea level to 448 meters in a matter of heart-stopping minutes. Do you know Reinebringen's summit can give you a 360-degree panorama where islands, fjords, and glaciers seem to rearrange themselves with every step you take? Locals once called the slope the Stairway of Stones because hikers carved improvised steps, and in 2016 volunteers and engineers replaced the eroding path with hundreds of solid stone steps to protect the fragile tundra. That intervention transformed a dangerous scramble into a steep, sustainable climb that still tests your legs but preserves the wildflowers clinging to the rock. From the middle ledge, the view pinches into the iconic Reinefjord, a mirror of cobalt water threaded through jagged islands. On clear days, you can count the tiny red fishermen's cabins of Reine village down below, and your eyes will be drawn along the spine of Moskenesoya to white beaches like Kavalvika, which seem to glow against the dark sea. Scientists have measured microclimates here so varied that alpine plants and seaweeds grow within meters of each other, creating impossible pockets of biodiversity on bare rock. Photographers chase that contrast. The same slope can host midnight sun gold 1 hour and aurora-lit emerald curtains the next, making Reinebringen one of the few places where polar extremes collide in minutes. Hiking Reinebringen is also a lesson in human history. Viking-era sailing lanes threaded these fjords, and the cliffs still hold stories of fishermen who read weather off the island silhouettes. A glance from the top reveals why communities clustered on sheltered shores. Each inlet is harbor and lifeline. Many walkers use Reinebringen as a hinge to continue exploring Lofoten, descending toward the hamlet of O to trace cod drying racks, or heading north toward Henningsvær's art-filled islets. That connective trail logic turns each summit into a crossroads between geology, culture, and sea. So one climb leads naturally into the next story of the islands. Beneath Norway's coastline, fjords like the Geirangerfjord and Sognefjord plunge deeper than 1,300 meters, creating some of the planet's steepest underwater walls. Do you know the Svalbard archipelago hosts glaciers that flow directly into the sea, and an isolated polar desert where polar bears sometimes outnumber residents? From the vertigo of Geiranger's cliffs, we follow the road down to Trolltunga, where hairpin turns carve a passage through raw glacial rock. Then the Atlantic Road sweeps us onto a ribbon of bridges that link tiny islands and reveal Norway's stubborn relationship with the North Sea. Further north, Lofoten's jagged peaks rise like cathedral spires from turquoise bays, a place where fishing villages have adapted to both midnight sun and pounding Atlantic storms. That fierce contrast leads naturally to Tromsø, the gateway to the aurora, where nights can flare with curtains of green and purple, unlike anywhere else on Earth. From Tromsø we drift east toward the ice-carved valleys of Jotunheimen, where Norway's highest peaks hold glaciers that feed rivers and sculpt the landscape year after year. Those same waters tumble west to glaciers like Briksdalsbreen and Svartisen, each revealing different faces of ice, blue, black-streaked, or riddled with meltwater tunnels. Travel then to Svalbard, and the silence itself becomes a character, broken only by the groan of ancient ice and the distant call of seabirds over frozen fjords. Here the global seed vault sits, a human-made cave of preservation tucked into permafrost, a reminder that Norway's remote geography has global significance. Every village, road, fjord, and glacier connects, the fisherman's cod that sustained coastal communities, linked to ocean currents that shape the climate of the north. The traditions of reindeer herders on plateau and the engineering of modern bridges both answer to the same elemental forces: wind, ice, and the pull of the sea. As we close this chapter, remember that Norway's secrets are not just dramatic vistas, they are living systems where geology, wildlife, and people have co-evolved for millennia. Hold on to the image of the midnight sun slipping behind a glacier-rimmed fjord, and know that each place we visited is a doorway to another hidden wonder just beyond the next headland. If you thought you had seen Norway, think again. Its quiet coves, storm-battered skerries, and ice-forged plateaus still keep surprises for those who look closer. Join us beyond this film to walk those paths, listen to those winds, and discover why Norway remains one of the planet's most intricate natural stories.